Tea.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being on Fire for Life. Love it when we have dynamic and amazing guests each and every week because I learn so much and I'm always expanding my awareness. And as I've always said, that's one reason I enjoy doing the work I do is it keeps me in tune and on track most of the time. So today, oh my gosh, we have the amazing Dr. Michelle Cohen. She's known as Doc Michelle. She is the original guest artist on radio in Los Angeles. She's all that and a slice of vegan cheese, let me tell you.
Love it.
So welcome so much and
Aw,
thank you for being with us today.
aw.
It's such a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Hayes, for having me on.
Oh,
It's great to be on your show.
it's my pleasure, and I'm so grateful that
Aw,
Dia introduced us, and brought me to the
yes.
awareness. She said, "Temple, you've got to meet
Aw,
Michelle Cohen. She is a
aw.
powerhouse." One of the things that's interesting is I've said this in my own life because we all get into sometimes the need to be right or we're going to push through
Yeah,
something. And
right,
I love that idea. And I created this understanding in myself is that instead of my way, the highway, but not
right,
as a road, even though
right,
that would apply. I think
right,
there's a
right,
song written about that,
right.
but you work with your clients and you've been leading therapy and leading edge for a long time.
Oh, I'm old.
You teach no, you're not. You teach them how to find the highest way. I love
Try to.
reading that about you,
Oh, thank you.
you know.
Yeah, at you working with people as well, you know that some people we vibe or have a good fit with some people, patients, individuals we work with,
Yep.
and some people are just not going for that higher sort of self. They just want to work out what's going on with a relationship or an individual issue that they haven't worked out, but they're some people are not into that. Let's get into your higher conscious or get into your higher self, be more spiritual, and just be better people in general. So that's sort of where I come from in my mind body work and, also self exploration of who you are and just, so that's sort of where I'm at. And
Yes.
yeah, I've been blessed to be able to learn these things in my
Absolutely.
life.
And so if I'm reading you correctly, so a lot of times people just they want to get through the day or get through the
Sure.
week
Sure.
or they just want to fix the thing
Yes.
and you're showing them that as you change you it's
Yes.
not always the band-aid.
Right.
As a matter of
Exactly.
fact, you may not even get the cut, right?
Right.
If you
Well
learn
said.
right if you
Exactly.
learn how to space into that. Well,
Yes.
what's a nice girl like you doing in a field like this? How did you get led in this area? What
Well,
was it that brought that about?
I think a lot of it was sort of within me as a child. I remember being a mediator with friends. I was always sticking up for the nerds and the kids who were bullied. So
Mhm.
I remember even being a little girl growing up in the neighborhood. I remember being in the street and confronting the bully
Good
and
for
saying,
you.
but I didn't punch him out, or I did get punched out myself a couple of times. But I would say, why are you so sad and angry? I mean,
Mhm,
where
mhm,
did this come from? I'm 10
mhm,
years old and I'm saying, you over here, just calm down. You over here. Now, but
mhm.
that was sort of my role as a child. Um, I felt I just did it.
Yes.
Growing up, though, I became very interested in psychology and mind body connection because of my upbringing. It was very strict. It was very controlled. I wasn't really heard, I don't think, or seen. Young women have
Mhm.
to act and dress like and be heard, not really, in
Mhm.
a certain way.
Absolutely.
So there was a very controlled environment, to make a long story short, to where, and I was a good girl. My sister, a little different, but she's awesome. I love her. She's so cool. But I was a good girl who really followed the rules, but didn't have individualism. Who am I? What's my identity? I just followed what was okay, what was socially acceptable, until I went to undergrad school when I was 18 and started having these horrible panic attacks. I mean, I would be sitting in class and I remember the heart palpitations. I felt like I was fainting, and I'd sort of pass out. I'd start sweating, and I would just thought I was dying. Literally thought I was dying.
Mm.
Started having them more and more in and out of school. And I think it was probably, since I was introduced to new friends, new experiences. I was stayed home while I was at college. I was enticed by another control. We'll get you a nice new car if you study at the university 20 minutes and stay here at home. So I did. I mean, gosh,
Wow. Yeah.
convertible Mustang. What do
What are you gonna do?
you're
Yeah.
18. You're gonna.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think what it was is my brain was changing, my mind was expanding, my world was expanding, and I felt more independent and yet trapped. So the
Mhm.
body imploded and
Mhm.
started having serious panic attacks.
That's
Um,
interesting. I went through that too.
did ya?
Well,
Did you?
one of the things is that I what I discovered is that people didn't want you asking them questions or
Right.
telling the
Right.
truth, It's
Right.
like and it was such a dichotomy
Right.
because the energy was, um, "Oh, we're all just really good Christian people," and
Right.
I was
Right.
this little girl saying, "Well, maybe we are, but down the road, my parents are gonna kill each other," and I would be told,
Right.
"You're not seeing it the way it is, and that can't be true, and forget everything you just said," and it was just
Right.
so
Oh my goodness.
like, how does that go together? And so I think early in my experience,
Yes.
I would have this hyperventilation
Oh
or
yeah.
this thing happen physically so I could be heard, so I could be seen,
Yes.
or so I could be noticed.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I finally
Yes.
figured out metaphysically I didn't need to go through that anymore, but I did go
Good.
through that
Good.
at one point,
Wow.
and that was interesting because then it would be like, "Oh, look at you," and, "Let's pay you attention, and let's do that," where
Yeah.
before it's like, "Oh, no,
Right.
we don't know what to do with you, we don't know how to deal with you, we don't who are you?"
Right. Exactly. And you're like, at that time, you're like, earlier I didn't know, but now I
Uh-huh.
kind of have a voice and I know. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's
isn't
so
that cool?
interesting. So you
That really is.
just your whole family system led you into wanting to
Yeah.
be a therapist.
I think it did. I had I literally kept it quiet that I thought I was dying because I didn't know what was going on. So
Mhm.
I mentioned to my best friend, and he was the only one I told because I was quietly kind of dying, and I was weak, I was tired, I was not eating, I was getting thin, and my friend said, "We're going out to the have a picnic, and we need to talk." I said, "Okay." I said, he says, "What's
Oh,
going
right.
on?" I said, "No, I really think I'm dying. I'm fainting a lot." And he started laughing at me hysterically. And I was so hurt. He's laughing. And I said, what do you mean? What the heck? Yeah, take me seriously. I can't. I'm fainting. I'm weak. I'm not eating. I think I'm dying. I know I'm fatigued all the time. I'm not. And he
Wow.
said, "Get the heck out of your house.
Mm.
I couldn't live with your mom. Get out
Mhm.
of there. And I went,
Wow.
he goes, you're literally, I mean, he was very, he little older than me, but he said, you're literally smothered.
Now that's
Literally.
that's a best friend, isn't it?
No kidding. And
Wow.
I
Did it ring
recall
true when you
mhm,
heard it? Did you go, "Whoa, you're spot on," or did
that,
it
yeah.
aggravate you? Did you
No,
resist it?
it was a flashbulb moment. I went, oh my gosh,
Wow.
he's laughing. And then, of course, what followed was all of our mutual friends know what's going on. So I felt like I was this, what? Everyone else knows what's going on. And
Wow.
so, my cousin, older cousin, I chatted with him about it shortly thereafter, and he was a pretty wise guy. And he said, look, I know this hypnotherapist. I have worked with him, and he will help you learn how to relax yourself. So I started taking lessons from him. He taught me self hypnosis. So I was fascinated with the mind body after that. I mean, I just soaked up as much information as I could. And I was studying psychology at the time as well. And so that's really sort of what started my journey, that told me I need to learn more about this. And I'm going to help others as well with it, because this really is something that needs to be heard. I think, of course, it was already known and
Mhm.
written about and heard. And, I studied different methods. And then I went into the spirituality of it all, because I started having some out of body experiences when I was in my hypnotic state. So that was cool too. I like that.
What a beautiful journey, huh?
Aw, thank you. Yeah, it
No,
was really
really, what a
cool.
beautiful journey. I'm getting closer to you.
Aw, cool.
Yeah.
Let's bring it
What
in
a
here.
what a yeah, what a beautiful journey. And
Aw.
that's part of what we were talking about when I was on your show, which I enjoyed
Yes.
very much.
Aw, thank you. It
Is
was
that
great.
we were talking about how if we could all just step back
Right.
and we could all write down events, things that
Yes.
happen, kind and unkind, mostly unkind, or what we perceive as,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we look at them, we can see how they've shaped us
Yes.
into being and becoming what our life work is really supposed to
Right.
be.
Right. It's really true. And
Hmm.
by the way, you were such a great guest.
Oh, thank
I
you.
mean, I just love your books, and, very similar journeys in a way. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I,
Very
I did not
similar.
grow up with a lot of chaos and arguing and that kind of thing. It was quieter on the down low, but it was still that subtle, feeling
Hmm.
of being alone and a different kind of a person that didn't know how to navigate this,
And it
kind
makes
of,
you wonder, and
yeah,
for people listening, it's like I remember going to Brazil
uh-huh,
to see a healer,
yeah,
and I remember seeing at the time, all the people with canes and
right,
wheelchairs and
sure.
big noticeable cysts and knots
Oh,
and
oh, yeah,
limps,
yeah,
and in the way, that I mean this with the most amount of grace, it's like I told my wife, I said, "In one way, please hear me the
yes,
way I mean this,
yes,
they're
yes.
the fortunate ones, because
Hmm.
the rest of
Mm-hmm.
us, because we don't see it so much,
Yes,
and
yes,
it's not like
exactly.
something in a mirror,
Right,
we
right.
often don't do as much work, right, as we could, or
Exactly.
inner analysis or whatever. And so in one way, like you said, it's like, so my parents were fighting and loud and cursing, and it was
Mm-hmm.
drama, and you never knew what
Oh
was going to
boy.
happen. But
Oh, yeah.
still, in one way, I was more fortunate that somebody that's living in silent control,
Right.
because I could see it and hear it and witness it.
Yes.
So
Right.
I think it's just all part of
Right.
that,
Right.
development that we
It
face, you know.
exactly. And so I think and is that how your interest in psychology and interviewing people and learning more spiritually came about, because you felt like you had to get out of the crazy, environment. And I want to find out more about how to help me figure things out or
Yeah,
why
well,
people do this crazy stuff,
I was just from the get-go different.
Yeah,
I was just different. And anybody that would call anybody in my high school right now or
right.
Facebook them would go, "Whoa, she was just different." And I just was. I was just an old
Uh-huh.
soul.
Yep.
I questioned things. And, when I was 5, I was told that I was here to bring a message to the world. I don't
I
know that
love
I've
it.
done that yet. I don't know if it's
Oh,
still
yeah.
something I'm yet to do, but I was told that, and I was in this community and, like you said, in this space that girls had their place, and I
Right.
didn't fit in any of that. So I was early
Right.
on tagged a
Right.
tom girl or assertive or bossy or aggressive because none of that was really true necessarily. But it was like, oh,
Right.
you're just
Right.
different and you speak your mind
Right.
and you don't let
That's good.
people run over you. And you know how all that goes. And
Sure.
so,
Sure.
so anyway, and then being different sexually, you see, I had to
Yes.
find a God that would be there for me.
Well, yes,
And so
absolutely.
I had to do that because I could
Sure.
not accept just what I was being told
Right.
because
Right.
I knew that I wasn't made as a mistake or an error, or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
and I was going through all that at a time that you didn't talk about anything. I mean,
Right.
now people talk about everything, what they ate on
Right.
social, when they're going to bed, who they're going to bed with, TMI, TMI. But back then
Right.
you didn't talk
True.
about any of that.
It's really true. Did
Mm-mm.
you feel judged by your family, or did you share with them
Oh, I was
how?
judged by my family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, I
when
was like,
when did you
"Eh."
sort of share with them that, I mean, come out? When did you decide to do that, and
At
how did they respond?
at 50. No,
Girl,
no,
no.
I have a funny
You crack me up. You are so
I have a
50.
funny story to tell you.
Wait,
No,
you're 40, you're 43, right?
I mean, the numbers don't go together anymore, do they?
Gotta plug
No.
you in here.
So
Yeah.
what occurred was that, my father walked in on a loving embrace, with me as
Oh,
a 13-year-old and a girl that
oh,
was 17 years old,
yeah,
and he immediately went to, "I can't believe it, and you know what this looks like, and it's called gay, and the devil is in your life, and you're going to
oh
hell." And then my
no,
my
oh
grandmother said,
no,
"You're going to hell." Well, my
oh
mom
no.
had been sent away when I was 10 and been put through the mental health clinic and those
Sure, sure.
barbaric, yeah,
Yes.
the
Oh
shock
no.
treatments,
Oh no.
and so I was afraid that was gonna happen to me. So it wasn't, I don't wanna say that I
No.
lied for many years in my life. I just wasn't
Yeah,
willing to give up information. So my family,
sure,
they got quiet when I would enter the room. They talked differently. I knew. They really
sure,
judged me, and they
sure.
really thought that, the devil had me, and one day maybe the devil would
Oh,
let me go. So my grandmother at 13 and a half said, "I can't believe, one of my favorite granddaughters isn't gonna go to heaven."
oh my gosh. I'm
Right?
so sorry. How traumatic. I
Right,
mean, good
right.
heavens.
And so,
Ugh,
all that happened, and I hadn't even learned to drive a car yet. So, yeah,
yeah,
so it was pretty
yeah.
wild, and, my grandmother, when I wrote my book, the one that you've enjoyed so much, "When Did You Die?" My grandmother Lois is in the book, and
Yes.
so I was having a psychic reading, and, the book hadn't been published yet. It was in, like, its final editing process, and so this woman that I was talking to, she said, "Your grandmother is coming through and wants to talk to you."
Ooh,
And I said, "Yeah, my grandmother Ruby, she comes all the time." She said,
yeah.
"Oh, no, it's not her. It's different. It's your,
Oh.
paternal grandmother.
Right?
And I said, Lois? Well, she hasn't said anything to me for years and years and years,
Wow. Yeah.
and she's been
Yeah.
dead 20 years now or whatever it
Oh,
was.
yeah.
And she said, "Oh, yeah, she wants you to know that she was wrong and
Oh.
she's very sorry and that you were right and you really are teaching her a lot
Oh.
about love." And so I have this feeling, and I said, "Well, that's so nice. I'm
Yeah.
happy that she's evolved." So then I was telling my literary agent, I said, and my grandmother came through and everything, and I went, "Wait a minute. She's manipulating me from the other side. It's because she doesn't wanna be in my book. Lois,
Oh.
you
Yeah.
just deal
Yeah.
with it, girl, because you are going to be in that book." That was so funny.
Yeah, that's funny stuff. I love that. That's really great. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, good for you, though. I mean, you're so funny. I was 50. You're, it's really tough, and I just, being seen, not being heard, being judged, it's just so traumatic. I was
Mhm,
sort of lucky because when I started to become my own independent person, I was sort of heard because I did eventually get into radio to where my parents would actually hear me on Los Angeles radio. I was very
mhm.
tenacious. Um, Started working at the college radio station, which was funny. NPR just took over for somebody who said, "Come in and do this." Oh, okay. And then just started putting air checks out there. It's what we called
Wow.
them, air checks in the older days. And so we'd send them out, and I send them out when I got out of college to, and this is samples of your shows or your
Mhm.
newscasting or whatever you did, to 10 stations in Los Angeles. And I got a couple of calls,
Wow.
and they said, well, we'll see, that kind of thing. But I started pestering this one news director. It was called KHJ Radio. It was owned by RKO at the time. I think it was taken over by CBS later, but um, kept pestering him. And I think he hired me just because he wanted me to go away. Okay, okay, just come in and we'll put you to work part time. And then it went into full time. So then I sort of became the first woman on LA radio to do news. Well, they had a female disc jockey there. She was the first. Her name was Cy. She was so
Mm,
cool. But in terms of news, they just have the good old boys, usually the men on the news, doing the news. So that was kind of fun. But
of
that
course.
all is in keeping with our theme
Mhm.
of finding your voice
Yes.
and being able to be heard, and how that manifested, I guess. And here you are, a
Mhm.
15-year running talk show podcast, and I
Mhm.
have been on LA Talk Radio for 15 years as well. We
Oh
just
my gosh. We do
Isn't that
have a
funny?
we do have
Yeah,
a lot in common.
yeah.
Well, one of the things along the way, when I moved out here to California, I met this woman that works with intergenerational
Mm.
DNA coding,
Oh boy. Oh
right?
boy.
Family
Yes.
constellation and things like that. And I realized that I was carrying some of my dad because he didn't feel seen.
Okay. I see
Right?
that.
And so
Okay.
that it would be interesting if, your mother didn't
Hmm.
feel seen or your dad or whatever. So that's always amazed me as well, is not
Yes.
consciously, obviously, but on another level,
Right.
carrying
Right.
some of those things with our family system. Well, here
We
we are
do.
making a mighty noise. You and I, people like us,
You know?
we broke the mold, didn't we?
Exactly. But I think you're really right on about carrying on either with DNA or that, the family characteristics or whatever that is. Um, my dad was a cool guy, but he wasn't home a lot. He had a very interesting job. He was sort of an investigator
Mm,
for pyrotechnics, and in the fire department, he was hired to look at arson investigations. He also headed up the helicopter units of the LA Fire Department. So he was very busy and gone a lot. My mom was a homemaker artist, an amazing artist, did wonderful paintings, but focused on my sister and I primarily. I found out why. So he was very interested in studying, and so I got that part of learning and studying, and
Mhm.
physics, and what is that about? My mom was raised in a lot of foster homes. She had the need
Wow.
to never be out of control of her connection with people or family.
Mm.
So I learned that's what it was about. And I learned forgiveness. That's why what are you thinking? Where are you going? What are you doing? No, you're not. That kind of thing. And I learned that that was her own fear, bless her heart. Um, I had an interesting experience when I really started reading and learning and managed my panic disorder when I was a young adult. Um, and I was going through learning about people's past, why they do what they do, started more psychology
Mhm.
internship. I was with my mom in a boutique. She said, I want to go with you, take you shopping. And oh, okay. So I was in my 20s, and we were in this boutique, and I had been practicing meditation, hypnosis, and I'd had a few out of body experiences. And I was watching her across the room, and there was a few women in there. And I remember looking at this color of this blouse, and all of a sudden I found myself, this is kooky, I know people are going, oh my gosh, Michelle is what? But I remember finding myself up in the corner of the boutique looking down. I saw the racks, the women, and I saw my mom.
Mm.
I saw this redheaded woman looking through clothing. And I had this feeling of total detachment of this woman. This is a person,
Yes.
and I felt her sadness, and I felt her
Mm.
neediness, and I looked, and then I realized, oh shoot, I'm
Mhm.
out of my body again.
Mhm.
Boom, back in my body, and that was a life changing thing for me because I realized that I was aware that she was her own soul in her own journey, and needy, and felt compassion and love, and really learned that no one could control me, and and forgave her totally. And so it kind of took me to get out of my own self to really see that.
That's beautiful. I think that that's a huge aha moment that on the journey we have is that there's this misconception that controlling people are powerful, or they have a sense of things, or they know what they're
Yeah,
doing,
right.
when it's the opposite. It's they are insecure, they're needy,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
otherwise, when you're comfortable with yourself, you have no interest or need to be in control.
right.
And because you can't be, even if you really tried. And so
Sure.
it's the opposite shift. Well, I think it's interesting that, with you having your anxiety and your panic attacks, didn't you start like a program in a psychiatric hospital or something to help with
Yeah,
something with
yeah.
anxiety? Tell
Yeah,
us about that.
okay, I
Tell us, tell us.
will. Well, I did actually. When I was in my very early years of being a psychologist, I was hired to work at this. It was a residential and outpatient clinic, so it was one huge organization. I led groups because I'd studied anxiety and I'd studied mind body connection, and I was
Mhm.
really into that. They hired me to not only do individual therapy, but to do groups with patients, many of them which had anxiety in their diagnosis.
Mm.
So I sort of created a program. I was and I did my dissertation on this because, of course, I was fascinated with it because of my early experiences.
Sure.
But I combined the autogenic therapy technique, which was created back in the 1930s.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't know about that, but it was a sense of relaxation, self sort of hypnosis, and visualization. So you'd
Hmm.
visualize a cool forehead and this flowing down to your body. This was like one of the first, visual meditations that was really done. And wow, where did all this stuff come from now? We
Right.
can go on anything, Calm, Gaia, YouTube, and find amazing things. But so I combined that with sort of self love, self parenting techniques. So we would go back into complete autogenic therapy relaxation with patients. And then what we would do is have them imagine themselves when they were a child or whatever their early trauma that they can remember, the earliest trauma and feelings of unworthiness or unloved or
Wow.
whatever
Mm.
they were. I'd have them go back into this while they were really deep and do this,
Mm.
havening techniques, right?
Hmm.
Do some of that and you be the parent to that child. You love that little innocent soul. Let's deeply love and you're pushing and you're guiding and you're pushing and people would cry. They'd start crying or they'd start, just sort of releasing this inner child that never really was given what they needed to be given. So I did these, my goodness, 3 times a week I did these groups. So it was sort
Wow.
of created that, handed that over to some of the other programs, who were using that kind of technique and they started using that. So
Mm.
it was kind of neat because I did find significance in that technique in changing some of the anxiety and stress levels, utilizing measures, the Beck anxiety inventory and all those
Sure.
depression inventory, things like that. I did find significance in combining the two techniques. So it was imagery of body relaxation with visualizations and feeling the heart brain coherence of feeling
Hmm.
that child who's suffering and loving that child and forgiving that child. So that was fun.
I love your original thinking capacity.
Aw, thank you. Thank
Well,
you so much.
it's an art, and
Well,
it takes bravery and courage to be willing to look at something with the both and,
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
either
sure,
or. It's got to be this or that. Oh, why?
sure.
Why? It could be, you know,
Yeah,
both and. You
sure.
have a guy coming up on your show that somebody was
Yes.
just talking to me about him.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I'm gonna look him up and start doing some of the processes that he teaches. Tell me
Mm.
about him. I think it's on the 27th, right? He's
Uh-huh.
coming on your
Mm-hmm.
show?
Burt Goldman, he's in his 90s now, and he's sharp as a tack. And they call him the American monk. He was
Wow.
sort of a student of Paramahansa Yogananda. That's why he's in his 90s, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Right.
he started learning Paramahansa Yogananda's techniques of meditation and mind body techniques,
Mhm.
and also visualization, feeling, manifestation. He created sort of a technique called quantum jumping. And so, what he has are these audio tapes that guide you through a visualization of being in a hallway, dark hallway. You open a door. Well, first of all, you create sort of what you want, or you create what you'd like to be interested in, or something. What would I like? A new adventure, a new skill, a new feeling, or workout relationships, whatever that is. You sort of meditate on that for a while, and then he guides you through this door. You open this door from this dark hall, and you're in the place where you want to be. So you're creating what you'd like. So if you want to resolve a relationship with someone, you have this person there, and you act out it going perfectly.
Mm.
Sort of like that old psycho cybernetics they used to use for athletes. You see
Yeah.
yourself winning the race.
Or
time and time again.
NLP, like NLP.
Right.
Yeah. hmm
Exactly. And you see yourself, or you see yourself, you want to be a successful business person. You see yourself in this office and people are coming to you. You're creating a story, you're creating a movie,
hmm
basically, and you do it repetitively. So the brain is manifesting, the brain is creating those neural patterns that are saying, this is real.
hmm
So there's no please, please, neediness and
Right.
you're
Right.
putting that to be, not to sound too trite, but you're putting that quantum energy from your, mind and body. You're putting the feelings out there into the universe. You're creating that. It's sort of a quantum creation kind
hmm
of thing, but through his techniques, which are very cool. So it's worked for him as well, and it's so many people who I've worked with, and
And
I
it
utilized it. It's
and
good.
it sounds like he has a lot of energy, right?
He sure does.
Isn't
He
that
has.
great? I
Oh
just
my
love it,
gosh.
what's happening now that people aren't buying into all these conditions and creating this sense of being
Yeah.
old, because
He's.
I just stay away from that conversation. I don't want to catch it. I'm
Oh.
like, "Ooh, that's contagious. Get away from me."
Ew.
Get away
That's
from me.
right.
I
Me too.
don't believe in that. I'm going to
Don't.
be young for the rest of my
Right.
life. Yes.
There you go. And, again, it's that which you think, feel, you are. That is
Yep.
what your life is. And that is, and I believe in, creating health within the body. I've interviewed Dr. Joe Dispenza many times, and he is just, that whole mind body thing and how he healed himself and
Oh,
through
yeah.
meditation. And I mean, I Bert's lovely, and I hear what you're saying about the. No, I don't want to buy into that. I
No,
mean,
not my
yeah,
story.
no, exactly.
Mm-mm.
But I think it's he's so sweet. I've spoken with him before, and he's lovely. He's just
Oh,
a very sharp man, and I think that to our point of that which we feel and think and believe is what we are.
oh, yeah.
And if we persist on negative feelings or thoughts or whatever that is, or assumptions about who we are, oh, this is bad. Oh, I can't do this. So Bert kind of picks us up and out, says, snap out of it. Let's jump out of here
Well,
and do
somebody
something.
was telling me they've been doing the practice that he advises, and they're already seeing a lot of,
Yeah.
progress.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was utilizing his progress several years ago. I mean, his program several years ago. And I found to, sort of create some of the things that I wanted to
hmm
create. And I was thinking, well, it was just cool because I had met some other people who introduced me to these people and it all came together to where I could do this or whatever. But gosh, I think our minds are so powerful to create almost anything.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
Like
the
you said,
voice.
the
Yeah,
intention, right? It's setting the
exactly.
intention. So you've been at radio a while, and you
A
love
very
it,
long
right?
time.
I
I
just
love
love it.
it. Do
I
you?
Mhm.
So I used to listen. My One of my cousins was a ham operator. So
Okay.
those were I was fascinated with. He'd go into the garage and he'd listen to all over the world. He'd tune in. I'm
hmm
always fascinated with radio waves. I used to at night. I used to have one of these little transistors, and I used to tune in and I'd listen
Oh
to
my
the
goodness.
static. Were you always interested in radio and the
I,
kind of.
well, the funny thing is I've always been looking to fulfill that calling that I got at 5. So whatever way it would show up, I'd go, "Oh, I bet that has something to do with this." So
Sure.
when I was in the corporate world, I was like, "Oh, this is not really my calling." And I got involved as a Army reservist as a
Oh, cool.
radio operator. Okay,
Very
but
nice.
no,
Yeah.
that wasn't what
Oh,
it was.
that. Oh, never mind.
I should have done more investigating. No, I helped the engineering group set up antennas for
Oh,
radio
okay.
operation.
Okay. Right. That was different.
I always tell people I had a very good recruiter. But no,
Hmm.
like you, I've always loved the idea of communicating, talking, chatting, I love knowing why people do what they do
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
the value of what they bring. And
Oh,
I
that's
always
neat.
learn so
Yeah,
much, as I'm sure you
sure.
do as well.
Well, as evidenced by your books,
Mm.
your stories and what you've learned and that you share with others, which are all so great. I was just reading your
Oh,
other little book too
well,
that
thank you.
Dia sent me, and they're
The difference
really learnable.
maker. Thank you.
I love that. I
Oh,
mean, it really inspires a lot of people how to change their lives, and I so appreciate that.
well, we all do what we can, can't we?
Yes, we do.
Another area you were talking about, like, well, do I count this as success? I have a wonderful
Yeah,
son. Yes, you
yeah.
do. That's a big
Aw.
deal.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, we can have children and kind of, but
Hmm.
no, I think it's as I had shared in my bio. I think it it felt good for me to learn how not to
Yeah.
parent for my upbringing, and
Hmm.
I probably overcompensated and spoiled him a little too much. But my husband has always been pretty much on the same page as well with me in terms of, he came from a firmer, um, even if you can believe it, background,
Hmm.
but no hands on, no, just more loving. And we were strict in our own way. But
Hmm.
this guy, this son of mine, who's now 31, his soul is he teaches me so much about love, and he'll text me and he'll say, "Mom, you haven't called me in 2 days." You know, oh my God. He's like,
What
just
a
let you
what a
know.
blessing, though.
Oh,
What a
I'm blessed.
gift, right?
I'm very blessed. And he has
Hmm.
a very successful business on Instagram. He's a spiritual warrior. He has studied so many leaders and gurus, and he's a health food person, and he is a middleman for companies that provide herbs and ashwagandha and candles.
Yes.
And so he has this whole business of, I call it, I mean, and it's not, I know that, I tease him, I go, "Oh, you're just a modern day hippie, I'm so," but he practices what he preaches. He's
Mm.
very he's a vegan, and he exercises every day, and he meditates, and he has a wonderful wife, lovely girl who's very spiritual. I mean, they just connected. So
Wow.
she's
What's his
beautiful.
Instagram name?
It's the Medicine Fam, like family.
The
The Medicine
Medicine
Fam.
Fan. I'll look
Hmm.
him up. I'll look
He's a
him up.
big. He's got a lot of followers, but
No.
so anyway, thanks
And
for asking.
while we're talking about URLs or Instagram, how do people look you up, girl, with your amazing
Oh,
work?
I have an Instagram. It's the Consciousness Doc.
The Consciousness Doc. I love that.
And then I have a website that's sort of undergoing right now. Bad timing because I have this interview with you, but uh, it's talkshowtherapist.com. Talkshow therapist. Yeah.
Talkshowtherapist.com.
And
Oh,
it's
that's
kind of being
great. That's
revamped. And
wonderful.
yeah,
And
yeah.
your
So,
son is the Medicine Fam?
mhm. And also, of course, folks can find me on latalkradio.com. I have my own webpage there as well. And they can listen to
Medicine
my
Fam.
interview in the archives. So there you go. That was
Oh,
last week.
yeah. Your son is doing some amazing things, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. The Medicine Fam.
So
It's
that's
running
what.
down the veins of the family. It's very impressive.
Yeah, yeah, I
Mhm.
think it is. So I'm really blessed to be able to have him, and his lovely, and my in-laws are amazing too. I mean, it's you don't find that every day,
Yeah.
you
It's
know.
great when you have that connection.
It really is.
My brother and his wife always had that with my parents and her
Oh,
parents, and it means a lot, especially
yes.
when children come along and
Yes.
everybody goes to events. And yeah,
Yes.
like you
Yeah.
said, you don't see that every day, but that's really special.
It really is true. And so we just sort of learn as we get older and we settle into, there's always chaos and drama in other parts of the family and friends and things like that. And it's okay.
It
Just
makes
roll
us
with it.
appreciate the not having it.
That's really true. It really does.
Right? It really does.
We become non-judgmental, hopefully, observers,
Observers.
right?
That's a good one. Well,
And
it's just
yeah.
been great being with you.
Aw,
And
well, my pleasure.
who knows when our journeys will cross again.
Well, I'd love
Sometime
to
in
have you
LA.
on.
I'm always
Hopefully,
up for it.
good,
Always
good,
let
good.
me know. Yeah,
I will. I
I
will.
will. I
Wow.
enjoy
Thank
it.
you.
I enjoy
Thank you.
sharing from my heart, and I know you do too. That's why
Hmm.
we connect
Yeah,
so well.
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. When we're
Thank you.
so used to talking,
Yes.
um, and having our own shows, sometimes we're not used to being interviewed. But you're an author and a speaker, and you're very used to. So I go, oh, I'm not that used to being. I'm the one that's usually the host. So
Yeah.
this was a treat for me as well.
Well,
So
it was a
thank you.
blessing to me. Thank you so much.